Hey, Giants, welcome to Wake Up with Giants Radio. I'm Nick Smith, and I've got a special guest tonight with Charra Post, all the way from New York.
Hi,
So, joining us
guys.
from a long ways away, for me anyway, probably close to a lot of people that we know. And Charra, will you do a quick introduction of yourself so
Sure,
people know who you are?
sure. So my name is Shara, and I'm a dietitian and a health coach by trade. I have always been passionate about self-care and self-love. And over the past year, maybe several months, I've just been really diving into that a lot deeper. Um, just realizing how our love for ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves is so important and interconnected with all aspects of our health.
It matters
um,
a lot, huh? So,
it's
it affects everything.
so much, it affects everything. So I've just been on this journey um, lately with trying to introduce other people and help influence other people to take better care of themselves and
Yeah.
just love themselves more,
So, if we dive into
in
the
a nutshell.
definition, right, of self love,
Hmm.
can we start there? Or is there somewhere else you'd want to start?
Oh, we can start there.
Kind of an operational definition as we move forward.
An operational definition of self-love. Now,
Yeah.
this is not from like a dictionary or anything.
No, no, this so operational simply is how we're going to use the word. So as we
Right.
use it throughout, so it can be anything so that people know this is
Like
how
what
we're
we're
using that
talking
phrase.
about.
Yeah.
I feel like self-love, and you can fill in,
Yeah.
as you see fit. Valuing yourself.
Okay.
So it's value, it's acceptance. So accepting yourself as you are
Yeah.
in the
I like that.
now,
Okay.
right? Um, Trying to take away judgment.
Yeah.
You're kind of trying to love yourself the way you would love a child
Yeah.
or a parent or, someone really close to you. It's that unconditional, it doesn't matter what you do or what you've done type of love.
Can
But we have
we
to
can
love
we
ourselves
yeah,
better.
go down some rabbit holes a little bit? The
Yeah, let's do
the
it.
the idea of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to challenge it because it's so used and people are always saying that phrase unconditional. And love should be unconditional, which puts a condition on what love should be automatically, right?
Yeah,
And
actually.
so it would be, you know, the idea of unconditional love makes it conditional in my
Hmm.
thought here. And maybe I'm way off track and running down a rabbit hole in some dogma here,
But that's
but
what's fun.
I'm wondering what that brings up for you.
Because it's conditional.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing that pops into my mind, whether it officially applies or not, is like it being forced.
Okay.
Like, are
Okay.
we
Yeah.
trying to force ourselves to love, or can it just happen naturally?
Yeah. So there's a natural state,
No.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
going back to your idea of valuation, the value's already there, but we might
Right.
not see it. The judgments that come up, the letting go of judgments, that might happen automatically, but letting go of judgments puts us back in that space. The acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance is simply what is, and so it puts us in that space of seeing things as they are. And so, by our nature, we are unconditional, but then we condition it, and then we put shoulds on it, right? So, is that okay to go down that road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit the last time we chatted.
Yeah.
Um, Stop shoulding yourself.
Okay. Yes.
I need to. I
Yeah.
should. It
Yeah. I
it
have
creates this
to.
like almost negative pressure.
Yeah.
Like, are you just maybe you say I will, or I won't,
Or
rather than I should or I need
yeah.
to.
Or I
I guess.
could. I could.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
as a possibility. Um, it's these constructs that come up. So if we look at all these constructs, so love being a construct, an idea,
Mm-hmm.
it's innate. It's within us. We know we have chemicals designed around love and the feeling of love.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at the construct of what love is, even biblically, if we go into that a little bit, they had a hard time. They're like, I don't know, but it's this, and this. And there's like 20, 30 things, right? Love is this.
Or patient, kind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then now in
Mm.
our time, it's more of love is unconditional, and which makes it conditional, right? It's like, is it that? Or is it something else?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, so many layers to it, I guess.
Yeah, I hope I didn't throw you off and
No, not at all. Well, really, I just wanted to come on and just see where the whole conversation went.
yeah,
So this is perfect.
that's awesome.
Um, yeah, so that's perfect. So unconditional love. I mean, I guess love for ourselves, it's a process because we all kind of we probably all start out loving ourselves and then life circumstances happen, or some of it's genetic and we may or may not take on um, some negativity or almost being cruel to ourselves sometimes. So I
Yeah.
think,
So imagine back. Let me hang on to that for a sec.
okay.
Go back to childhood as much as you
Hmm.
can, and
Okay.
imagine wherever you can in that childhood what it was like. There's no concept of what love is, right? Nobody's taught that to you yet. So
Hmm.
there's no love yet as a definition. There's a way of being, right? There's this presence.
You just are. There's no expectation.
Yeah, should we end the show right there?
Right.
That's it. How do we get back to that? Right? Like
Ha.
to that just
No,
isness, that just are-ness, like
to just be and
yeah, yeah,
not have expectations.
yeah.
I mean, you could argue, that expectations are healthy and challenge us and help us grow, but
Dude's like,
then
"No, don't end the show.
don't
Don't
end the
stop."
show. But then sometimes having expectations can set us up for frustration
Yeah,
and, that feeling of failure that we get and negativity.
yeah.
If things don't meet our expectations, or if we don't meet our own expectations,
We have a hard time just being, right?
just being.
We have a hard time
Yeah.
doing that. So there's some study by Lisa Feldman Barrett on emotions, and she talks about depression being created by our not living up to our own ideals. And
Ah,
then anxiety comes from not living up to the ideals of others, which, if you think about it, our own ideals truly are the ideals of others because we take on the
we can't help
constructs
it.
of our parents, we take on the constructs of our culture. She
Hmm.
says that the brain is a cultural artifact. And I love the term of that because you think of an artifact like something you find
Okay.
in with the Incas, and you'd be like, I know that's from the Incans. Or you'd find something in Egypt and you'd say that's an artifact of the Egyptians. And you would know
Mhm.
based on that culture that there was an artifact of that. And the brain is simply that. We are born and most of our brain development happens after birth. And so our brain becomes an artifact of whatever environment we're born into.
Right.
And so that just isness is molded into not being, not just being. It's molded into something else. I'm going off a little bit here, but I'm wondering,
That's
as we
okay.
talk about this, what that brings up for you.
Our brains are an ancient artifact. Yeah. You have to send me, first of all, like a list of books to read.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you which app to get is Blinkist. If you don't have Blinkist,
You have to message this all to me after
okay,
we're done with
okay,
this
I'll
show.
get that to you. So the beauty of it, it truncates books, so you can listen to a lot of books in like 12
Nice.
minutes each. So it's
No,
a powerful thing.
I love it. But yeah, there's all these expectations of us that are put on us by our parents and our peers and all of that. And
Yeah.
it molds us to have these same expectations of ourselves, whether or not they're realistic.
Yeah, so we can fit into our society
Hmm.
and thrive in our society or in our culture, whatever that is. We are molded into that,
Right.
right? And so that just isness that we're born with is molded into something else. So it goes from fresh clay, untouched clay. I don't remember, like I do remember in a classroom when the teacher would unbox fresh clay for a project. And I
Mhm.
was so excited because it was like untouched in squares, beautiful, perfectly boxed, and nobody had done anything with it. And then it could be anything I want. And then I would go in and mold it. And then
Right.
I'd blend it all together. Like I would make a mess of it. And and I imagine as an analogy and a metaphor is that we are that fresh block of clay, and then we come in and then we're molded into whatever our society or our culture feels is proper for us in that
Uh-huh.
culture. Because if I were born in India, I would likely have cultural facets of the Indian culture. I would be Indian,
Mhm.
other than my skin color and I'd probably have the accent and everything. I would have the belief systems, whatever that is. So when it comes to love, is it something that we go out and get and bring in, or is it something that is innate that we're born with and then it gets molded almost in a sense out of us? Does that make
I
sense?
I feel like it's the latter. It makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
And the clay analogy, I really like that because if you think about it, the more clay is exposed to the air and the heat, it
Yeah.
hardens.
Yeah.
And then those,
Huh.
those patterns of either self-love or not, um, get really, really hard to
Hmm.
change.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
that's a good analogy.
There's a book called Mental and Emotional Release that Coach Steve Bacon, put me onto, and I'm listening to that right now.
Okay,
And
another one.
there's a doctor who's going through the brain and he's looking at how patterns and perceptions and beliefs are created. And when you have an event in your life, you make up a story about that event. And then you have an emotion tied to that event too. So you have the
Mhm.
event, which is one thing,
Okay.
your interpretation of that event based on the perception at the time you experienced the event, and then an emotion tied to that. So those three things together create an experience, a memory. And so it
Okay.
anchors in your body. And so you're going along and you have another similar event. And so you remember that last memory and you bring it forward to that current
Okay.
event. And so now it becomes a cluster of events. Now I have another level or layer of supporting evidence of that event. And so it anchors it in even further. So now it becomes a cluster of experiences because now I go through the same process, but then I also support it with an old belief system.
Oh.
And
And then
and
is
what
there an
he teaches,
expectation linked to
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Mhm.
So we develop and we grow, and there's this complexity that gets created over time where it's one repeated pattern after another until it becomes a belief system or a value system. And a value is whatever you hold as important, and belief is whatever you hold as dear. But beliefs often are the things that you act on because they trigger your emotions, but it tends to go back to your experiences. So
Mhm.
if we're looking at love as innate, let's say that love is innate, but you have events in your life and you interpreted them to mean something, and then somebody gave you a label for it, and that's what he describes there is they give you a label for it. Now you have a label tied to the event, the emotion, and
Mhm.
the experience, right? So now you have a name for it, and then we carry that forward and we learn all these constructs, and they're all created. Every single one of them is created. Somebody decided that red is red and blue is blue and green is green, and we all agreed collectively, sure, we'll receive that, we'll accept that. But in another culture, they called it verde or rojo,
Oh,
right? So we're
right.
talking
There's
about a
different
similar
language.
thing, but they called it something else.
Mhm.
And so this is where I guess when I want to play with this is, what is love truly? Is love our natural state, our being without all of the added stuff, out all the additives? Because you talk about health and nutrition, right?
Mhm.
Your body knows how to regulate and get back to health if you feed it the right
Right.
stuff.
No, it's interesting. I feel like self-care and self-love
Yeah.
are are connected, but they're still different,
Okay. Yeah. Describe it. So,
right? So
yeah.
I'm thinking,
And is this okay to be going down this path with
I'm
this?
okay with it if you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm good.
No, I like it. So I I kind of use self-care and self-love, like those terms, a bit interchangeably, but yet
Yeah.
they're very different.
Yeah.
Maybe they're
Okay.
not different. I don't know. You can tell me what you think. But self-love, we talked about how it's that feeling of acceptance,
Mm.
unconditional. I don't know anymore if that's the right word.
No, no, I'm sorry to do that to you.
No,
No.
you're fine.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. No, but
There's no
it's
rightness or
interesting,
wrongness.
right? And
Yeah.
it's conditioned within us, even
Yeah.
though it's unconditional.
Right.
But then it also takes a lot of work for many of us to actually love ourselves. And I think that that's where self care comes in.
Yeah.
And self care being, it can be many different things. It can be taking breaks when you're at work. It can be meditating and
Mm.
exercise. It can be catching yourself in the moment when you're mean to yourself, when you're going, oh my gosh, you idiot, I can't believe that I just did that. And stopping yourself and saying no,
Yeah.
and then being positive instead. So, like, all of those different things are self care, and they contribute, I think, to love of yourself, but it needs to be practiced.
Yeah.
And
I
even
would see that self-care would chisel away at all the stuff that covers your love. Like
I could
if
soften the clay again.
yeah, it gets all yeah, it puts moisture back in the clay. It
Right,
makes it
right.
usable again and moldable again.
Hmm.
There is this tendency to be unaccepting and resistant to what is. And so acceptance as a term, that it is what it is, doesn't say that it can't be what it is, because it is what it is. So whatever
It
you
is
say
what
about
it is.
yourself or think about yourself, you think that, you have that, you do
Hmm.
that. So resistance to that would be almost to deny that that's present, but it's present. It doesn't change that it's present. It's just denying that it's present.
Huh.
So self-care, that gentleness around self-care would be along the lines of creating room for it to be present.
Creating space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Creating space, allowing the positive and the negative,
Hmm.
and just, what's the word I'm looking for? We're just trying to introduce more positive,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because we're all going to experience, even the gurus and the people who are the best at loving themselves and caring for themselves are going to have negative emotions and feel badly about themselves
I
at some
hope
point.
so.
Yeah,
I
because
hope
we're
I'm not
human.
I hope I'm
But
not the only one. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily spiral as often and as long because of the
Yeah.
practice
Okay.
of self-care,
There you go. I love that.
you know?
Yeah. Even the saying of "I love that" is how do we even
Yeah.
use that? Right? Like that's cool, or that's a rad term. It's just that concept of self-care helps you move through difficult emotions more quickly.
Exactly, exactly. It's like it's allowing yourself the space and the time to experience them,
Okay.
because if you push the negativity away completely, like you're stuffing it. And
Yeah.
when you're stuffing negativity, like it's just building up and building up until it eventually is just going to explode, and or the wound is going to fester,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
cause more problems. But when
So
you're self-care, you're allowing yourself the time and the space to sit and be with your emotions, your circumstances, but then also, um, just also be loving like you would a loved one who is going through something hard, like it's okay,
yeah.
it's just this kind of this interesting flow and balance.
Huh.
Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. It's actually what I like about this conversation is that as you speak, it's reminding me of other things that fit and confirm what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Um, the word allowance, to allow, that it has permission to be where it is, that it can be
Hmm.
there for a time or a period versus accommodation where it's permanently there. Allowance is temporary, and
Temporary.
the word acceptance means to receive willingly.
Hmm.
And And so looking at what is to be willing to receive that willingly. Like I'm okay receiving it the way that it is. It's okay that it's not okay. Like I'm okay that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And so that willingness to receive whatever is opens up room for you to transform it and create it differently. It's not that it needs to change into something else. It can stay like that. What if it was always like that? It would have space to be that, and you could create another creation
You could.
alongside it that might be even more impactful in your life, and then the energy would feed over to that creation and no longer serve the other creation. Does that make sense?
It does. It's like you're now able to see the silver lining and use your experience to create something good
Mm,
out of it. Whereas
yeah.
if you were stuffing it, or if you were not taking the time to care for yourself and you're stuffing those emotions and everything that's going on, how are you supposed to learn and develop and grow from it? And then eventually maybe help other people,
I like that.
right?
The idea of stuffing it, right? So you're having a negative emotion, let's say a negative thought, and you stuff it. And then
Mm-hmm.
you add to that, on top of it, toxic positivity, the idea that that's not there. So I'm going to pretend
Right.
that's not there, and I'm going to pretend that I'm positive. That's when it becomes toxic. Is it's not really positive because all you're doing is putting it on top of that negativity.
Yeah. That's interesting because I have been hearing a lot about toxic positivity lately. But then at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm really being positive. What's the line?
Huh?
What's the
Yeah.
line between, trying to have a positive outlook and, okay, well, this bad thing happened, but look at all the good things. Where does it become toxic and where does it become
Gratitude.
helpful and
Gratitude.
gratitude? And
Yeah,
yeah,
gratitude would be the line. That would be the distinction of this is maybe happening, right? This negative thing is happening, and I have these thoughts or patterns and beliefs, and they're unuseful and negative. What I'm grateful for, and this isn't delusional, is getting into the space of, yeah, that's there, and I recognize it and I acknowledge it. I give knowledge to the idea that it's there, and then
hmm,
having the idea that I'm in gratitude around what it's taught me, what I've learned from it, where I'm going, what remains. And then the gratitude as a tool for health is phenomenal.
it's huge.
Lowers
Yeah,
LDL levels. Like it has a lot of usefulness in the body because it lowers stress
absolutely.
levels. It improves outlook for life. So that's where I would see the transition is people who go into toxic positivity, they're not grateful for this experience. They're really pissed that that's there, but I'm going to be cheery. I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to
It's
put on this face for the world, right? Yes. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
So gratitude is what creates that shift between positive positivity
Yeah, right.
and toxic
Between
positivity. Yeah, it kind
yeah.
of it kind of makes sense though, because you can be very grateful for a lot of things and be going through some crap.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
yeah,
the tie-in of self-care that you brought in, right? That
hmm,
self-care is the gentleness around what's going on within you because we have these containers and our whole human experience is happening right in here. So these events are happening out here. We're interacting with people. It's an event. Somebody says something. It's an event. Somebody
hmm,
yells at us. It's an event. But the whole experience goes on right in here. And so self-care is also going to happen right in here. So if I were to call you a terrible name right now, Shara, that would probably hit your body and have some
oh
impact, right? And
yeah,
affect. But then you would go into the space of determining that's an event, that is a thing, just like any other thing, like the sun shining. It's an event. But the meaning making goes into play. And that's where the self-care comes in because the meaning making that we make isn't gentle. It's very condemning or judgmental.
yeah,
Even on the positive side, that was a good thing, right? Or that was a bad thing. Was
right,
it? I
right.
tell me which it
No,
was.
that's hard. Um, I was imagining you saying something, which I can't really imagine you saying something mean, but I'm thinking of like when you hear something
Yeah, yeah.
negative directed towards you and how difficult it is, at least for me. I think some people, maybe they just act like they brush it off really easily, but for me, it's like it takes some time to work
Yeah.
through that, even though I'm miss self-care, self-love.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can we talk
like
through a process there? Like
it hurts.
it
I
does. Yeah.
it takes some self-coaching,
Okay.
I feel like, and also reaching out to other people who are going to be like, no, 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 this is how you really are, and you're amazing. And you're like, okay.
Okay.
But I have to remind myself that one person, it's only one person who thinks and said this thing. It's not everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how much
Okay.
does
The
it really
others.
matter? And
Yeah.
then the allowance comes into play, that I'm
Right.
allowed to have these feelings. And then the tendency, what I notice is the more I try and fight the feeling, the more it pops up.
Mm.
Right. So my coach, what she recommended for me is when you're having all these feelings, and if someone said something to you that was mean and you're having trouble letting it go, forgive yourself for holding on to it.
Mm.
Like, don't try to fight it anymore, because that's just going to get you nowhere. You forgive yourself for holding on to it.
Yeah.
I forgive myself for holding on to it. And that's kind of the process that I try to go through. And it really is helpful. It still takes time, and it's going to take different lengths of time
Yeah.
for each of us, and depending on what it was. But it really helps me to not try and fight that feeling and just forgive myself for holding on to it.
You know what I imagine
And
is fighting it is like a hard floor with a bouncy ball. So the hard floor is the fighting it. And
yeah,
so when you drop that bouncy ball or somebody hits you, it bounces back up, right? And it comes right back at you. And if it were to fall in a pillow, right, the acceptance is more like a
right.
pillow. So when it falls, there's no reaction from it. It just is absorbed by the receiving of it. This goes back to the
Uh-huh.
word acceptance, the willingness to receive. So if somebody said something about me or I said something about you, there's this opportunity to really say, well, that's an interesting, in a way, point of view. And what you'll do within you is that could trigger some old traumas, emotions, and chemicals will be going on in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it would truly impact me. If somebody said something, it might bring up some stuff. And
Yeah.
and so as that's going, the goal is not to continue that or fight that, but to let it just run its course, because most chemicals in the body will run about 90 seconds before they shut off. But it sure doesn't feel that way, right? Most of
Oh,
us run it over and over again, so it lasts hours and days and weeks.
yeah.
But truthfully, the chemicals will wear out in about 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it were to hit us like a pillow, we were willing to receive whatever anybody said. They could call us anything. They could call me a nasty orange peel, and it wouldn't have affect, right? And I would probably use other language, but it wouldn't hit as hard, because it would be a point of view based on what's going on in that person's world. Like you said earlier, it's a reflection of what's going on within them. They're
Exactly.
speaking what's going on within them, and they're projecting that out and putting it out
They're
here.
projecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we have to remember that it's often not about us, even if it was directed towards us.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and your bouncy ball, and letting it land on a cushion, I think that's really great. And I also think about it like, if you're bouncing a ball, if you hit the ball away,
Mm.
it's going to hit the floor harder and keep bouncing, and maybe even bounce
Yeah.
higher. But if you
Yeah.
just stop hitting the ball, it's going to bounce lower and lower and lower until it finally just stops bouncing.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like, whoop. So
And
if you can't use the pillow, then you can at least just stop.
feeding
Forgive
the energy,
yourself,
right?
and that kind of stops you from trying to hit it away,
Yeah. I
making
like
it
that.
worse. You
Yeah.
know what
So
I mean?
that self-care is that gentleness of, okay, so I'll tie this in. Okay. The
Okay.
idea, I love the word forgiveness. The word forgiveness, my favorite definition is to not cause additional harm. But we
Yes.
often think externally with that. But to not cause additional harm within yourself is
Mhm.
really the goal. So if somebody said something and that came in and it had an effect on you and your emotions are going and your thoughts are spinning and you go into that crying state where you're just wondering if you have any value left, right? All of
Yep.
this is to not cause additional harm. So there's harm that came in that you experienced, that you decided that's harm, that hurt. The goal is to not cause additional harm, which would mean, nothing directed back to that person, but also nothing directed in here. So that self-care would be that space of that happened, that didn't feel good.
Mhm.
But before we go into meaning making and deciding that we're terrible or we always cry or we're too sensitive or whatever it is, before we do any of that and heap that on top of what happened, is to slow down with it.
Pause.
Yeah, pause. Yeah, I
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
What does that bring up for you?
The power in the pause. I mean, I guess waiting to react,
Okay.
or at least waiting to outwardly react.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
inside we're still like, ah.
Yeah.
Um, but if someone's saying something negative to you, you pause before you respond.
Okay. The
Because
pause. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's power in the pause. Because if you're responding hard and quick, you might be causing additional harm, not
Yeah.
only to the other person by punching back, but then to yourself,
Right.
because then it created this whole new dynamic. So if you pause and you wait before you respond, I think it really helps the whole picture. It helps caring for yourself, caring for that other person, and it might not even have been about you,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though they jab
Yeah.
at you. Um,
Or you
and
hear something like, um, and I won't share any details outside of this, but somebody says something and you receive it a certain way. So you have a listening for it and you receive that,
mhm,
and they're intentionally not trying to hurt anybody, but they say something and it feels like hurt over here. So over here, it's received as hurt. That was
yeah,
hurtful. And so inside there's experience behind that deciding that means that's hurtful. There are all these experiences in your history that support all of that. And all these emotions that support that, years and years of emotion and practice and programming that support that idea that that's hurt, that hurts. So if somebody came in and said that's not hurtful, they would deny all of that for that person. They would just essentially say that's a lie.
like, no, I
Yet,
didn't hurt you.
yeah, but it's a truth for that person. That is a real
Exactly.
truth for them because they have all this evidence and experience to support the idea that that means hurt. And so
Right.
getting into the space of somebody might do something out here, going into the idea that an event is just an event. What it means goes on right here. That
Mm,
everybody's truth is slightly different. Like you and I can have two different
yes.
truths about an event. And which one is right? Which one is the right truth? Which is the one
Right.
that we go with?
Right.
That's what we do is we right
That's
make and we wrong make and we in group and we out group.
And does there really have to be a right or a wrong? Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Maybe some understanding, getting into the space of that person is, I could see how that could affect you. I could see how that would be interpreted that way. I could also see how that would impact the body. I would understand
Yeah.
how that would feel. I could see this from your point of view. It doesn't mean that I feel it or see it or perceive it or agree with it the same way you do, but I can have some understanding over where you are of what that might be like.
You
And when
can
people feel
validate.
understood, what
Mhm.
happens? It's I'll just set you up. When people feel understood, they relax.
They do.
Yeah.
They relax, they open up,
Yeah.
and that's when the magic happens, I feel like.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then I'm kind of tying back into toxic positivity. So if we're
Yep.
practicing, we're of course having a positive outlook, but we're validating those emotions. We're not wrong for feeling them. We're not
Mm.
crazy. We're not, this is normal and it's okay and you're allowed.
Yeah.
And it makes sense why you would feel that way.
Yeah. Right.
I'm
Oh,
not nuts. No, you're not. Okay, good. And then and then that's where you can really make an impact.
Yeah.
And you can be telling yourself these things, that it's
Mm.
okay. I'm allowed to feel this. This is normal. This is temporary. And it's settling the nervous system.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then you're
Yeah.
able to learn and grow and create that space. And then in your relationship with others, especially if you practice it towards yourself, it's going to come even more naturally towards
Yes.
others.
Yeah.
You know, you're able to provide validation.
Yeah. We should
And
have some of these, right? We should have unconditional emotions. There's no shoulding. Like,
yeah,
it could
should.
be. It's a possibility.
Unconditional emotion. Hmm.
But the self-care idea, the going in and doing that for yourself teaches you how to do that for others. Because when you learn how to do that for yourself, you can't help but do that for others.
Right, right.
It's automatic.
It's more automatic. But yeah, and at the same time, you know, it's more automatic to do it for others if you're practicing it yourself. But then it does seem like it's easier to forgive others,
Mm.
to tell other people to, you know, take a minute and take care of
Yeah.
themselves than it is to actually do it for yourself. For whatever reason,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
see it all the time, and I experience it myself too,
Okay.
and have to talk myself. You
Yeah.
first, Charra. It's okay. You're going to serve everyone else better if you take this time.
Can
But
I
it's
can
easier
I
to tell
tackle
other
that?
people that. Yeah.
Okay, you're speaking it. You're speaking it, and I'm gonna have you hear this just right
Okay.
here. There's a story that's called "It's Easier to Do That for Others Than for Myself." There's a story called that, and you just spoke that story out to me. And if I were hearing you, I would say, yeah, that's a very convincing story. That is a truth for you. It is easier for others to do that than it is for me. So it becomes a narrative in your mind. So you start to perceive and believe that that's true. And so you
Ah,
start to speak and act as though that's true because it's easier to do that for others than it is to do that for myself. Can you hear that?
okay.
It's it becomes your truth. And you're not often conscious of it because you're speaking it. So by the time you're speaking it, you're beyond the automations and now it's out in the world. But somebody who's listening will hear that and they can feed it back where now it's a reverse loop. Now you can go back internal with that story and really ask yourself, in the words of
But
Byron
is
Katie,
it?
is that true? Can
Is
that
that true?
possibly be true?
Mhm.
And how would you know? And if it was true, would it matter? And what would you do with it then? Right. And so going into your story, this is the story. This, if it were a book, it would be called the book "It's Easier for Others."
Hmm.
And you would go find it on a bookshelf and you would read it and you're like, that's amazing. But that's the book that's playing in your mind that says it's easier for others.
So how do we rewrite the book?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
So
How do
so
we?
it's a practice because
It's a
everything that you
practice.
have is a practice.
It is a practice.
Yeah.
Hmm. It is a practice. And you know, you're right, because it may appear that way, or I've written that story,
Yeah.
right? But it makes sense to me that if you're caring for yourself, it would be easier to care for others too, because you're going to be more
Mm.
present.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to be more present, and well enough, because you put your oxygen mask on first. You know, you
I
hear
like that.
that
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah.
Um, so you're well enough to give to others, whereas
Yeah.
if you're depleted, there's nothing left.
So imagine if, let's say, that story came up and then you started judging yourself for having that story. This is what we do, right? Is like, now
Yeah.
I'm a terrible person because I have that story running. But what if there was room, going into it where you're gentle with yourself of, yeah, that is present. Wow, that is there. I do have
Like,
that.
oh, yeah.
And that's it.
It could be
It
like
doesn't,
interesting.
yeah, interesting. Yeah. Hmm. It
Okay.
doesn't mean anything. It's just simply present. And it gives you space to not have it mean anything because people are battling the meaning of it and resisting the meaning of it and judging the meaning of it when it's the meaning is all made up anyway. So if the meaning is made
Right.
up, if you can give room for it to be what it is, now you can start to practice into rewriting that story of, you know what? No, that is not true anymore. It's actually easy over here too. It's easy
Right.
for me to do that work here too.
Would it be valuable to rewrite the story? Like,
Yeah.
perhaps this is something I'd like to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps. It has a
Yeah.
possibility. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Huh.
then you can decide that if you'll do it now or, write it down for something.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you'd be able to share that with somebody and they'd be able to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
We have mirror neurons that fire. So when you see something in somebody else, your neurons fire as though it's happening in you. And that's a learning tool. So as you watch your parents, you would be able to watch them and learn from them, and it
Mhm.
would fire in your brain the same as if you were doing the activity. So your brain doesn't know the distinction between reality and imagination. And so when you're looking at mirror neurons, if you're able to create that within yourself and you're in the space of others who can really experience that, then they would start to have that fire within them. In a way, you would ignite the fire in them. There's a firing of neurons and it's electrical impulse. It literally is
Fire spread
fire. Yeah. Inspire them.
and positivity and, emotions, I feel like are contagious, the negative and the positive ones.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
On
can
TikTok,
spread.
the ones where the guy just starts laughing on the train and then the whole train's laughing. It's super contagious. Yeah.
I was reading today that your brain also doesn't know the difference between a fake laugh and a real laugh. So that if
Huh.
you're trying to cheer yourself up, you can fake laugh, and then the
Interesting.
stress hormones come down and the endorphins come up, and it can really lift your mood if you just
Yeah.
start laughing.
Interesting. The
Yeah.
body is a hack, right? All these emotions are coming from the inside out. And the way to reverse them is from the outside in, like
Yeah.
breathing and soothing the body,
Mhm.
and like you said, laughing or doing the Mona Lisa smile, or
Mhm.
all these things just put you in that space, like the power pose, lifting your arms over your head. And the
Yeah.
power pose releases dopamine. So you can hack your body where you can make your body feel good. So that handles the emotional side. And then once your body's calm, like you said, then comes the self-care of rewriting that story, confirming the story, really looking at the narratives, right?
Mhm.
And so where's love in all of this? Like, love is always there. It's not like,
It is
you know what
all
I
of it.
mean? Yeah, it
It
is all
is
of it.
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're when you work on caring for something or someone, that's showing love.
Yeah.
And when you forgive someone, and when you release judgment, that's all love. And even when judgment is there, there's still love, but it's just
I
no.
wonder if science one day will find that the space between the atoms is filled with love. Like it's like they can't find
It'd
the
be
emptiness. Well,
beautiful.
it's
It's all
it's
little
because
hearts.
it's filled with little hearts. Yeah. It's filled with hearts. That would be amazing, actually.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So love isn't something to go out and earn. It's something that's
Mm-mm.
already within you, and it's an unlearning basically of things that you've put on top of love that mean that you're not lovable because you already are that. So the self-care is one of those tools that really gets you back into the space of removing those layers to get back
Mhm.
to that beingness you just are. You just
Mhm.
be like you
Just
were as a
be.
kid, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
And another thought came to mind just now, and I wonder what you'll have to say about it, is deserving. I think I have learned that I deserve
Yeah.
time to do things that fill me up and make me happy and to take care of myself, and I deserve it. And
Yeah.
everybody deserves it. But I think that many people don't feel that they deserve good things.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then they are doing for others, almost trying to earn it. And it's just this hamster wheel.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that? On
Well,
the word
I'll tell you,
deserve and that
my
concept?
secret is like I learn my words by looking them up. So I love to look up words. and like the etymology of the words of how did it originate. And it goes back to, and I'm on Etym Online. That's my favorite site for this. So it's not like I just have this stored up here. People might hear the show and be like, oh, he knows words like
You're
crazy.
so wise.
I learn the words as I look them up, and sometimes some of them stick, but some don't. But I love to look up the words to see when it was created, and we use it pretty close to the same as when it was created. But what did it mean originally? So that word worthiness, that meriting of something, like I'm deserving of, I am worthy of this thing, right? Is yeah, you are that automatically. So that's not a question. You already are that. So to be deserving of it isn't really the question. It's making yourself, like you said, valuable enough in your own eyes.
Right.
So valor, the word valor or value is
Mm-hmm.
also from worth, right? The value, the worth of something. And so even the word appreciation, you take something and you add value to that thing. So it appreciates in value. So if I were to say, I appreciate you, I would take you as you are and then add value to that. Like you would mean this.
Right.
And on top of that, you would mean this, right? You would be appreciated. And so deserving falls in line with that of
Mm-hmm.
worth. And so we just don't see our worth because it's covered up with this construct and this idea that I am not that is conditional, that I have to do this to get that. Is that answering in a way what?
I think so. Because what I see a lot of is it's just this chronic feeling
Yeah.
of unworthiness, right?
Unworthiness. Yeah. Yeah.
Unworthiness, which is in a sense the opposite of love. Because if you were to
Hmm.
truly love yourself, the feeling worthy of good things comes more naturally.
Hmm.
Does that, does that
Yeah.
make
I like this. I like this. I like where it's going. Like it would in a sense be the opposite of love. It would be the shading of love. It would be the masking of love.
the masking of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. So as a necessity, let's even look at this comment. Is it
Mm-hmm.
a
Beautiful.
necessity or is it already there?
It's
All
not
people are
luxury, it's a
worthy.
necessity. I feel like, that's a good question, because is love always there and it's just masked, or does it actually go away for some people?
Hmm.
Or is
Yeah.
it just
Interesting.
need
So
to
there's
be
a lot going
uncovered
out.
or
Okay.
softened?
Philip Zimbardo in his work. Philip Zimbardo did the Stanford Prison Experiment. He found that every human, in his research, every human is capable of evil, right? Darkness, bad things. So the Stanford Prison Experiment was a test of that. And he has another book out where he really dives into the potential that each of us has for evil. We have potential for good and we have potential for bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that love could be snuffed out is absolutely a possibility. Like I would say, yes, it could be snubbed out. Like that a person would forget to such a degree that they would have no remembrance of love. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I think it could be rekindled.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just like if I can go from love to not love, then I can also go in the other direction.
You,
And
you have to be able to. It just,
it's
because
a,
there's
yeah,
always a way to light a fire,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
I think,
right?
well, maybe not, maybe not in Washington in the rainforest when it's pouring or under the ocean.
Right,
I don't
right.
know. Yeah.
But, huh.
Um, but as love is not a luxury. So that comment, love is not a luxury, it's a necessity. I could see that. And even as a necessity, it's our birthright. Love is our birthright. It's
I
not something
agree.
that we have to go out and mine or farm or create and
You don't
develop.
have to earn it.
It's already within us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can see it in a child's eyes. You see it when they're playing. It's all the stuff that happens after that creates this idea that we're not that.
Right.
And so Interesting. I like how this has gone. Hopefully it's served where you want to go to.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just along for the ride today.
Yeah. It's
It's been
perfect.
good. Yeah.
Um, as I think of love, self-love
Mhm.
is finding that within yourself and polishing it up for yourself so that you can do that for others and show them how to do that for themselves. It's not that, truthfully, we shouldn't really need to depend on anybody else for our love and our worth, because that'll
It
come
should
from
be
here.
inside.
And
Yeah.
as we shine that up and take the shade off of it and unmask it,
Mhm.
then teach others how to do that. Now, we're not giving them anything that they don't already have. We're just reminding them how to remove those things for themselves too, so they feel the love that's always been there.
How to access that love, how
Right.
to make it grow. Mhm.
As an idea, it would be like one star giving its light to another star.
Mhm.
They don't do that. They are self-fulfilled in what they create in their own light. They put
Right,
out their own light,
right.
and the other one puts out its own light, but it doesn't need this light to shine and make that one
Mhm.
a light. It's already there.
And I do think it's really important to have that self-love and that happiness from inside. It's going to make everything else more successful.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if we're looking for that in other places or through other people, I mean, people are people.
yeah, yeah.
They're going to disappoint us.
And
We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And to put
yeah,
that kind of pressure on somebody else to fulfill your inner
man,
love, that's too much. You've got to
it
be able to
it
do it
is.
yourself. And then you get the added bonus of love from other people.
Yeah.
And then when they disappoint you, you can brush it off easier because it's all right. It's all right here,
Yeah, because it's
you
not
know?
about you. It's about what's going on within them and their
Hmm.
stories and their traumas and experiences and meanings that they made throughout life. That's all going on over there. So that to me is where I see it, is
Hmm.
the more I work on me, the more I naturally support and love others. Like, it just, you can't work on yourself truthfully
Hmm.
without impacting those around you. It just seems impossible.
It does. And so being selfish, taking the time for self-love and
Yeah.
self-care is actually probably one of the most selfless things that you can do.
Huh.
Because
Yeah.
just like you said, it spills over.
Yeah.
It spills over.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's beautiful.
so
Beautiful.
when I sneak away from the family to exercise or do my meditation or take a couple minutes,
Hmm.
when I come back, I am such a better person than I would have been if I
Oh,
didn't take that time. Do you know what
that's
I mean? I'm
beautiful.
not
Yeah.
yelling. I can just kind of chill and observe and share my love with everybody else. Whereas if I didn't take that time to be
Then it gets
selfish
cloud.
or
It's got a
selfless,
dark cloud,
then
right? It's like, I'm so angry,
exactly,
and then you can't see the
exactly.
light.
You've got to
That's
take
cool.
time for yourself.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I like that.
And it can be easier said than done for many.
Okay,
That's for sure.
we are human,
But it's a
and truthfully,
practice.
yeah. If somebody did something and somebody said something or cut me off in traffic or whatever it might be, right? I might go into my automatic reactions,
I
right?
have.
So
Yep.
likely I will. And the goal here is not to stop that from happening. I mean, eventually you might not do that anymore. You might be more relaxed in that situation. But it's to come out of that and have some gentleness coming out of it. That when you get into that space and you have this reaction and your emotions are going, you're triggered, your body's just firing. And the more you try and resist that or fight that, the longer it stays. But like we said
Hmm.
with the cushion and the pillow, is when you create that softness for that to land and that willingness to receive that, yeah, that happened. This is what it is. I went through what I did. I said what I said. Maybe I swore, but you're okay with it. It's okay. I did that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to re-engage and forgive myself for any judgments I might have around
Hmm.
that. And my new truth that I'm going to live into and create into is this: I'm going to re-engage with that. Simply that. And
Yep.
then you practice into that and you let that go. It's just, I'm going to let that go.
Acknowledgement and
Yeah.
forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, all right
It's
inside
neat.
of us, right?
Mhm.
There's
And I
yeah,
feel like as time goes by and we get better when those, triggers happen and those responses happen,
yeah,
it's not that they go away per se. I mean, maybe they will, but
yeah,
usually they're still going to happen, but you recover much faster.
yeah, yeah, yep.
The
It's
recovery time shrinks.
the emotional resilience, I think, is what a lot of us are looking for as adults, is many of
Mhm.
us didn't get it. If I look at my story and my events in my life, there were things that happened. My dad died when I was 2. My mom struggled mentally. There's 11
Mhm.
kids. There's a lot of, like neglect, maybe not intentional, but it happens. So there's no connection with parents. There's no security.
Mhm.
So there's the story that goes on that says, this is how you operate in that environment. And then you carry that into old age. So at 47, those are still present. And so learning to work with that, to not judge myself so harshly because of that, to take
Right.
those events and let them be what they are. They are what they are. But what they mean can change. If I wrote it back then at 5 years old, I'm a much better author now than I was at 5 years old when I decided that's what it meant. Right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now I have a chance to really look at it and create space for it and rewrite it. Because we're the authors of our life.
So we can rewrite if we want to.
Yeah. Forever.
We're in charge.
If you're on your way out, as long as you're breathing, you can rewrite it. Your
Yeah.
brain is plastic enough that it can do that.
Mhm.
So yeah, childhood understandings as adults. That is exactly what happens with
Mm.
most people is they took what they learned in childhood up until the age of 25 is when the brain starts leveling out in development. And
Makes
so from
sense.
0 to 25, all of that development carried forward for the latter half of your life.
That's kinda scary.
It is kind of scary. So you're in relationship with whoever you developed yourself as back then, right? So
Mhm.
rewriting that story now is vital. It's important, and the gentleness around rewriting that story is important.
The gentleness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Huh.
That's key.
What
This
other
is fun.
thoughts do you have?
Oh, I so many, but I feel like this was really good. This was really positive.
Yeah, thank you for
Mhm.
this. Yeah. You allowed me to rant
I
a little bit,
Oh,
and
I love
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
It wouldn't be, Wake Up with Giants without your rants. They're perfect.
The Nick rants, man. I get
They're perfect.
ranty.
And
Yeah.
it takes the pressure off of me. I can just kind of relax and chime in here and there.
Yeah. No, the input that came in was
Good.
perfect because the flow of it with what you contributed here tonight is beautiful. It's just a
Thank
gentle
you.
reminder of that self-care and the importance of self-care and how that just kind of brings the love out of you. You just when you take care of yourself, you can't help but feel good. You can't help but love, right?
Right, right. It spills over.
Yeah,
It spills over to other people.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for being on. It was a
My
good show.
pleasure. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
For those that are watching, catch us next. Well, I don't know. I don't think we have a show next week, but we do the following. And then you'll want to start joining us on Wake Up with Giants TV on Sunday mornings. And then we'll create some other things around this. But we're going to be shutting off Wake Up with Giants radio at the end of April. And so you won't see this on Thursday nights anymore. But it's not because we don't love you. It's not that. It's just because we're going to free up some more space to do other things here. So yeah, just really appreciate each of you for being a part of this. Hugh, thank you for your comments. Julie Westover, it's good to see you on here. Shauna Lee, I could go back through. We had a pretty good turnout tonight. So to each of
Yay.
you,
Thank
thank
you
you.
guys so much.
Make it a giant evening. We'll see you on the next episode.